ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणस्पत आनशृण्वन्नोतिभिस्सेदसादनम् ॐ महागणपतये नमः। ॐ त्र्यम्बकं यजामहे सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकमिव बन्धनान् मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात्। ॐ त्र्यम्बकं यजामहे सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकमिव बन्धनान् मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात्। ॐ त्र्यम्बकं यजामहे सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकमिव बन्धनान् मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात्। ॐ ब्रह्मानन्दं परमसुखदं केवलं ज्ञानमूर्तिम् द्वन्द्वातीतं गगनसदृशं तत्त्वमस्यादिलक्ष्यम् एकं नित्यं विमलमचलं सर्वधी साक्षिभूतं भावातीतं त्रिगुणरहितं सद्गुरुं तं नमामि। सद्गुरुं तं नमामि। ॐ नमः शिवाय। 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 ॐ Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Ya Namah Parvati Pataye Har Har Maha. Yogena Chittasya Padena Vacham Malam Sharirasya Cha Vaidyakena Yopakarottam Pravaram Muninam Patanjalim Pranjaliranatosmi. Patanjalim Pranjaliranatosmi. Atha yoganuशासनम् योगश्चित्तवृत्तिनिरोधः तदा द्रष्टुस्वरूपेव स्थानम् वृत्तिसारूप्यमितरत्र वृत्तयः पञ्चतयः क्लिष्टाः प्रमाणविपर्ययविकल्पनिद्रास्मृतयः प्रत्यक्षानुमानागमप्रमाणानि विपर्ययो मिथ्याज्ञानमतद्रूपप्रतिष्ठम् शब्दज्ञानानुपाती वस्तुशून्यो विकल्पः अभावप्रत्ययालम्बनावृत्तिर्निद्रा अनुभूतविषया सम्प्रमोषस्मृतिः अभ्यासवैराग्याभ्यां तन्निरोधः तत्र स्थितौ यत्नोऽभ्यासः स तु दीर्घकालनैरन्तर्यसत्कारासेवितो दृढभूमिः दृष्टानुश्रविकविषयवितृष्णस्य वशीकारसंज्ञावैराग्यम् तत्परं पुरुषख्यातेर्गुणवैतृष्ण्यम् हाँ. So yogaश्चित्त वृत्ति निरोधः. Yoga is to stop all the chitta vrittis. Then the drashta abides in his own nature. So there are these 5 types of vrittis, klishta as well as aklishta. So praman, viparya, vikalpa, nidra and smriti. So all these vrittis can be stopped. First, actually, they reach a state of ekagrata, all the vrittis, becomes single pointed, and that single pointed vritti also gets dropped through the path of abhyas and vairagya. So abhyasa vairagyabhyam tan nirodha. But this abhyas is what is abhyas is to put forth effort to abide in that state of nirodha, and this abhyas has to be done for a long time without a break, with all respect and faith. Then it becomes strong. Also vairagya. So when we, through dosha drishti and through our vivek, when we develop this vairagya called vashikara, then it takes us to that samadhi, sampradnya samadhi. But higher than this is the higher vairagya, wherein through vivek, and this vivek also comes through that sampradnya samadhi. When we gain abidance in that sampradnya samadhi, we gain higher vivek, and with this vivek one comes to develop total vairagya towards all gunas, including sattva guna also, means towards the entire expression of prakriti. So that leads the seeker to asampradnyat samadhi. So tat param purushakhyate guna vaitrishyam. So this is the param vairagya. So now the question is that what is this abhyas which will lead us to the sampradnya samadhi, and then we get the vivek, thereafter we come to that asampradnya samadhi. So what is this abhyas? That is said now in the next sutra, sutra number 17. Vitarka vichara ananda अस्मिता रूपा अनुगमात् संप्रज्ञातः वितर्क विचार आनंद अस्मिता रूप अनुगमात् संप्रज्ञातः. Sampradyat. This our Patanjali Rishi has given lot of names to the various samadhi avasthas. So like here he mentions Sampradnya Samadhi, then there is Asampradnya Samadhi, there is Sabija, Nirbija. So various terms are there which as we go along we will come to understand. Some of the terms are meant for the same type of samadhi, but different terms are used. So vitarka, vichara, ananda, asmita, rupa, anugamat, sampradnyatah. This sampradnyata samadhi is the ekagra avastha of the chitta. We had seen that chitta remains in various avasthas, moodha, kshipta, vikshipta. So moodha, kshipta, vikshipta are not yoga avastha, but ekagra and niruddha avastha are yoga avastha. So that ekagra avastha of the chitta is called sampradnyat samadhi, and niruddha avastha of chitta is asampradnyat samadhi. So how one gains this ekagrata of the chitta? Ekagra means there is only one vritti, single pointed vritti in the chitta. So for this one has to do this abhyas. See, when one focuses our attention on one vritti, the other vrittis automatically becomes weak and gets dropped. So the first step of overcoming and negating all vrittis is to focus our attention on one vritti. And this happens in our day-to-day life also. When our attention is on one thing, we become totally unaware of other things. So that is called the concentration like. And sometimes the depth of our concentration is such that we become absolutely unaware of everything else. So this has to be achieved in proper stages. So here the Rishi gives us 4 steps in attaining that Sampradnyat Samadhi. These 4 steps are called Vitarka, Vichara, Ananda and Asmita. Of the nature of Vitarka, Vichara, Ananda, Asmita. Associated, Anugamat means associated with this. Vitarka Rupa Anugamat, Vichara Rupa Anugamat, Ananda Rupa Anugamat and Asmita Rupa Anugamat. Sampradnyatah. So these terms have to be properly comprehended, and the technique of this abhyas should be understood. So vitarka is our focus or concentration or ekagrata on stula padartha. Stula means gross. Stula. Vichara refers to sukshma padartha. Concentration on sukshma. Ananda refers to the cause of this sukshma, even at a subtler level. And asmita is the subtlest, which is the sense of amness. So if you refer to this chart, if you can look at the chart, beautiful chart, nicely made. So the outermost level of our these are all expressions. Purusha is the beyond everything, but is present in everything. In Gita also Bhagavan says, Maya tatamidam sarvam jagat avyakta murtina, that I pervade this entire world, which is Prakriti, or the expressions of Prakriti. I pervade the entire world, but in my unmanifest form, means nobody can see me, but I am there. Nobody can see, but my presence is there. So that is the Purusha. In Gita, Bhagavan uses the term Purusha, Purushottama. He identifies with that Purusha only and speaks. In Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan identifies with this Param Purusha, whom he calls Uttama Purusha. Different terms are used for that. And then he uses the term Prakriti also. And the Purusha, presence of Purusha in Prakriti, he calls it sometimes Akshara Purush. Sometimes he uses the term Para Prakriti. At times he uses the term Kshetradnya. These different terms are there, which we have seen used in Bhagavad Gita also. So when Purusha associated with Prakriti, then different terms are used. But that pure Purusha is that supreme Brahma only, or Purushottama. So the presence of Purusha is there in Mahabhut also, in Karmendri also, in Jnanendri also, in Tanmatras also, in Mana, Ahankar, Mahat. So ultimately we have to gain abidance in that Purusha, but we have to start from the gross. From there the yatra begins. See what you call the world, the projection of the world happens from Prakriti further down. But when we have to do our sadhana, we have to go within. So from the gross, we come to the subtle level and still subtler, and then gain abidance in the Purusha. So this Mahabhut is experienced through our senses as Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. We call it Akash, Vayu, Agni, Jal, Prithvi. These are the Pancha Mahabhut. Akash, Vayu, Agni, Jal, Prithvi. And they are experienced as Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa and Gandha. And in the same object, sometimes, often we experience the different thing, like Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha is experienced in one object itself. So, all these five expressions of this Pancha Mahabhut, they are totally mixed up. That is what makes them gross. That I can not only see an object, but I can hear the same object also. That means the Agni Tattva and the what you call Akash Tattva have mixed up. Therefore, I can see and hear the same object. Like an apple, we can see an apple. So what I see is fire. I can hear the apple when it falls on my head. But it is the sound of my head. Okay, just you can do Tichki. Then I can hear the apple also. That is the Akash Tattva, or in the apple. Then we can smell the apple. We can taste the apple. And we can touch the apple. So apple is one object in this world, and all five things we can experience in that object. Means all the five senses experiences the object. But that object is made up of five different elements. Each of them are separate. Each of them have their own special qualities. So these five elements in their pure form, without mixing up with each other, they are called tanmatras. But when they mix with each other to form one gross object, they are called Mahabhut. So it is the same thing. The cause of Mahabhut are the tanmatras. So tanmatras are at a subtler level. Again, this Mahabhut is experienced through our senses. So the eyes, ears, nose, skin and tongue experiences the Mahabhut. But these eyes, ears, nose and all are also at a subtler level. What we see gross our hand is one thing, but that ability to hold and all is at a subtler level. Similarly, what we see as our eyes, like the outer structure and all, is a gross thing, but the eyes are the real ability to see. That ability to see is at a subtler level, at the tanmatra level only. They are also made up of those same material as tanmatras. Even the 11th indriya, the mana, is also at a very subtle level, made from the same tanmatras. I mean, at the same level of tanmatras. So this mana and this indriyas and this tanmatras, all of them are caused by this ahankar tattva. Ahankar is the cause of tanmatra, mana and these indriyas. All of them have come from ahankar. This is a cosmic that ahankar gives birth to the tanmatras and these 11 indriyas. The ahankar actually has got all the three gunas. So the tamasic ahankar gives rise to the tanmatras, And the sattvic ahankar gives rise to the mana, jnanendriya, karmendriya. So ahankar is very subtle. It is one step subtler than the mind. See, just as let us say vayu is there, air. Subtler than air is akash. So just imagine, akash is one step subtler than vayu. It's a different level altogether. Similarly, ahankar is one step subtler than the mana. Akash pervades vayu. Akash pervades vayu. So when we this ahankar is subtle, subtler than this ahankar is mahat tattva. Again, one step subtler than ahankar is that mahat tattva, which is experienced as chitta. Chitta and mahat tattva is same. Only we call it samashti and vashti and all. So in this chitta only all the vrittis arise. All the vrittis happen in chitta. So in our chitta, there is this, at the subtlest level, there is the asmita vritti is there in the chitta. And this asmita vritti itself further becomes little gross to become our individual ahankar. That ahankar itself further becomes our mind. And our mind itself expresses through the jnanendriyas and karmendriyas. Yeah. And on this side, Mahabhut are caused by tanmatras. Tanmatras are caused by ahankar. Means ahankar itself, the cosmic ahankar itself, expresses as the tanmatras. And further they express as Mahabhut. So at the till the ahankar level, ahankar actually creates this, from that ahankar the division starts as I, aham and idam. So now our yatra should begin from the Mahabhut and go all the way to the Purusha. Purusha is there in Mahabhut, Purusha is there in Karmendriya, Jnanendriya, Tanmatras, Purusha is there in Ahankar, Purusha is there in Chitta. But here in Mahabhut there is extreme tamogun. As we go in our inner journey, the tamogun becomes lesser and lesser, rajogun becomes lesser and lesser, and sattva gun keeps on increasing. And as the sattva gun increases also, we go at a deeper level. So this Mahabhut is all tamasic. At this Jnanendriya, Tanmatra, Mana level, little tamogun is less, rajogun is there, sattva gun is there. At ahankar level, the sattva gun is little more. At chitta level, pure chitta level, it is maximum. So if we are able to, through this sadhana, we have to move up towards that chitta, in which there is this asmita vritti is there. So focusing our attention on that asmita vritti. So the first step is vitarkanugat. Vitarkanugat samprajna samadhi is to focus attention on the Mahabhut, on the gross elements. And for that what is required is integration of our senses. Our senses and mind should be fully integrated. Those are the uh, instrument through which we gain the focus. The object remaining same, when the mind and our senses get properly integrated, then we are able to experience the objects of this world in their true form. Means we will get pratyaksha pratyaksha prama of those objects. Otherwise, it gets mixed up with lot of things. Fine tuning of this vitarka will be told later on. How the vitarka, because in that vitarka also there is a mixture of so many shabda and jnana and all. So how to make it more fine tuned will be another sutra is there. We will talk about it later. But here, when the mind and our senses are completely tuned, because, for example, if I touch something, but if my mind is not there, then I don't experience that touch. Like many times we sit in pravachan, our ears are receiving the thing, the words, but if the mind is elsewhere, then the words come and loiter around and go away also. We don't even know. Their impression might be there in chitta, which creates its own samskar, but consciously we are not aware of it. So that is not called yoga. That is not called concentration. Ah. So concentration is the term dharana is used for concentration in the next chapter. So this dharana or the concentration is to tune our senses and mind in such a way that we become fully conscious or full knowledge, proper knowledge of the object happens. That knowledge is called that prajna. The knowledge happens, prajna of that, therefore it is called samprajnat. Knowledge of that object happen. Knowledge doesn't mean that we do some research or something, but we become fully conscious of that object. So it is such a thing that we might say that, oh, I am conscious, I see, I look and all, but we are not looking. Like even if there is a flower, if I am looking at the flower, my looking at the flower gets corrupted by so many my other thoughts. I name it, I condemn it, I keep on thinking about it, I compare it. So many things happen in my mind which prevents me from looking at that flower. Looking is not as simple as it looks. Hmm. So the first step, the Rishi says, you start looking, hearing, tasting, touching properly. वहाँ से शुरू करो योग साधना. If you can't look at the world which is so clear, gross in front of you, how can you look at your own self, which is so subtle? Hmm. So that looking at the world outside, we can choose any object, any gross object, it doesn't matter what are the object. But those objects should be such that it should not encourage our thinking. So it should be something nice, sattvic. If it is chosen, it is better. Otherwise, you choose your neighbor as an object, then it is very difficult. Instead of some prajna samadhi, some other thing can happen. So choose an object which will give rise to, which will help you in concentration. So the mana indriyas are well tuned and my attention is fully on the object, gross, mahabhut, any object. Then only that vritti of that object is there on my chitta. I concentrate in such a way that no other vrittis arise in the chitta except that object. It might take its own time. As I said in the previous that abhyas, that it should be dirgha kala nairantarya and all. So when this is practiced for a long time, then the chitta will only have the vritti of that object, and the total understanding of that object will happen. Means the indriyas will be fully aware, the mind will fully understand the shabda sparsha rupa rasa gandha of that object without any names or without any other things added to it. Those are other colors we add by our thinking without adding any color to the object, looking at the object as it is. If that is practiced for a long time, then our attention, our concentration becomes very, very subtle, proper. So that is called vitarkanugat samadhi, sampradnyat samadhi. So once this is achieved, then that object which we are watching through our senses, we have to go to the subtler level of that object, which are the tanmatras, which is the tanmatra, and also the senses through which we are watching. Our attention should go to the senses and also to the mind. So the senses, karmendriya, jnanendriya, tanmatra and mana, all these are the object of concentration at the level of vicharanugat sampradnyat samadhi. This has to be understood through vichar. Here we can use our senses to look at the objects, but at the subtler level, we can't use the senses to look. So what are we using? Vichar. See, this vichar is done with our buddhi. Now I am using the word buddhi has come. Buddhi is at the level of ahankar. Buddhi, through which one does vichar, is at the level of ahankar only. Ahankar is also a buddhi. So with that, we have to do the vichar and focus our attention on the subtler, the jnanendriyas, tanmatras, and the mana, or even on one of them, maybe just the tanmatras, or maybe just the mana. So this is a very subtle level of concentration. So when we become aware not of the object but that by which the object is seen, those are our senses. So instead of focusing our attention on sound, we focus our attention on that by which the sound is heard. Instead of focusing attention on touch, we focus attention on that by which the touch is experienced, and so on. These are the senses. And even from the level of the senses, we come at the level of the mind. Means focusing our attention on that which is functioning through the senses, which is understanding, which is controlling or understanding all the senses together. That is our mind. Mind can not only hear, but it can touch, taste without going out. Means it goes out through the senses only. So the senses themselves are individual, having individual abilities, but all of them are bound together to mind. So it is actually, really speaking, when we say senses, we are only talking about that one sense organ we have called mind, which has got 10 limbs as though. So first we become aware of the limbs, then we become aware of that whose limbs are these senses. Mind is very subtle. Compared to the senses, the mind is subtle. And mind only, which is tarka vitarka, comes to understand the objects. Mind only makes the senses look and understand the object or look at the object. So the mind is now all this we have to experience ourselves, because one can talk about them, but you have to go within and check it out for yourself. So, so that all this is done with the help of our ahankar and buddhi. So when the whole tuning happens at the ahankar and buddhi level, then we become aware. We can focus our attention on that mind and the senses. In Bhagavad Gita also, Bhagavan tells us that superior to the indriyas is the mind. Superior to the mind is the buddhi. So he tells us that from indriyas you come at the level of the mind. From the mind you come at the level of the buddhi. So when our buddhi and ahankar is well tuned, we will be able to comprehend and focus our attention on the mind. And when only the thought, only the vritti of this mind is there on our chitta, that is what we have reached the state of vicharanugat sampradnya samadhi. Concentration on one of this mind or tanmatra. So then we have reached that state of vicharanugat. This is a long, it might take a long time. This is not a easy that one day you sit and then, okay, I've done, now next day what should I do? It takes its own time, but that is the interesting level. So once that is done, that is called vicharanugat, the second step. That is done, then we come at the level of ahankar. This ahankar is experienced as I am. Ahankar is experienced as I am. And when we experience this ahankar in its pure form as I am, total focus on it, it is, see, as I said, as we go inside, the level of sattva gun keeps on rising. So in this ahankar also, the level of sattva gun is more. That level, when we reach that level, it is more. So when one focuses one's attention on I am, that is the experience of ahankar. I am this, like, when the matra of this becomes too much, then the ahankar itself starts becoming tamasic and rajasic. But when the matra of this reduces and only the I am is there, then the tamogun and rajogun reduces. More and more sattvagun is there. And when I am is experienced in its sattvic avastha, one also experiences ananda. Therefore, it is called anandanugat, sampradnya samadhi. In the beginning, one may not experience that ananda, one may not experience the ahankar in its sattvic avastha. See, the sattvic avastha, sattvic ahankar is cause of mana, indriyas and all. So we have to experience the sattvic ahankar, the pure I amness. when I amness is experienced, whole attention is there. In the chitta, there is only the vritti of ahankar, that I am, then that is called anandanugat sampradnya samadhi. And that is a state of supreme joy. Because there is no, see, when we go inside, there is no disturbance of the outer world. When we are totally, when one is in that anandanugat sampradnya samadhi, there is no awareness of mana, tanmatras, jnanendriyas, karmendriyas, or mahabhut. The outer world is gone. You are totally in the inner world. And it's a big stage. This is a big stage. It's a big step. We will see how big it is in the next few sutras it will come. So, and that gives ananda. So, aham, therefore actually that ahankar is really speaking is a level of ananda only. Tamasic, Rajasic makes it little different. When it is identified very strongly with the mana, tanmatras and the mahabhut, I am this is mine, this, that and all, then all gadbad happens. But in the Shuddha Avastha, I amness, that I am, that is sattvic and that gives joy. Therefore it is called Anandanugat Sampradnyat Samadhi. If this is practiced for a long, long time, Dirghakala Nairantarya Satkara Sevito Dhrudabhumihi, then we gain firm abidance in this Anandanugat. If that is done, then we can go one step further inside. That's called Asmita Anugat. The cause of Ahankar is Asmita. Asmita is pure amness. Amness. That's called Asmita. Asmi iti. Asmi, Asmi, Asmi. But when we say Aham Asmi, it becomes Ahankar. So Aham Asmi, Ahankar, when it comes, that Ahankar, I am, and then Ahankar also, there is experience of this is. So the division happens of I and this. So in order to see this and experience this, the Ahankar itself creates mana and the senses to experience this. But if you go within, then that Ahankar, I am, is born from amness, Asmita. Asmita is a very subtle and a very interesting level which is experienced in the chitta level. Once we reach that level of asmita, all this lower thing gets dropped, means one is not aware of them. So asmita is just amness. It is actually the pure Purusha and reflecting in pure chitta. Asmita, experience as amness. It's what we call the drashta in its pure form. Is experienced as amness in the chitta. Still the chitta is there, but Purusha is only covered by sattva gun, experience as amness, which is a very high level. And to get one, when in the chitta there is only the vritti of amness, am, asmi, 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 not aham, asmi, asmi, aham आ गया तो अहंकार लेवल पे आ गए, एंड इदम आ गया तो मन लेवल पे आ गए. सो इदम को ड्रॉप करना is one stage, and then aham ko drop karna is the next stage. So in asmitanugat, aham is dropped. In anandanugat, idam is dropped. So this asmi, amness, when only the vritti of amness is there, no other vritti is there in the chitta, that means chitta is ekagra. Ekagra means single pointed, only one vritti. What? Amness. Therefore it's called ekagra. That is a big stage, a big point. If one reaches there, then the rest of the journey is nothing. You don't have to do anything. And that is what Nisargadatta Maharaj, he has given this path that you just focus your attention on amness. But to reach that amness, one it begins from here, it becomes easy. Otherwise, we don't understand what these Mahatmas say actually. We just shake our head and we continue asking the same foolish questions to them. But if we take this step by step journey, then we reach that state. Even Bhagwan Ramana Maharshi, when he says, you don't do anything, just ask, who am I? Is also telling us to focus attention from the ahankar to that source of that ahankar. And once you reach that source, the rest of the journey will be, because our purushartha, our ability lies till this samprajnat samadhi, the height of samprajnat samadhi if we reach, then the rest of the journey happens uh, smoothly because the ahankar is dropped long time ago. So the rest of the journey happens by the grace of that Purusha, you can say, or whatever. So this is a very interesting and a subtle journey. So Asmitanugat Samadhi, when we attain, we are identified only with the Chitta. And as the Chitta becomes more and more sattvic, the individual and the total becomes one. There is no then difference between individual and total. The concept of individual and total disappear at this level. The concept of individual and total is very much there at the level of the mind and all, because the division is created so much. But as we go inner, at the level of the chitta, if one remains, goes there, then the concept that individual and total it disappears. There is only one. In Vedanta, we keep talking about the oneness of Jiva and Ishvara, oneness of Atma and Brahma. That oneness happens automatically when we reach the level of this chitta through our sadhana. As I said, that just as if I have a big hall covered with a thick wall, then the space inside and space outside is totally separated. And then we keep telling that person the space inside outside is one and all. It remains just as a concept. But as the wall starts becoming thinner and thinner and thinner, and finally it breaks, the inside outside becomes one only. So at the level of this Asmita Anugat Samadhi, and even at the level of Ananda Anugat Samadhi, the concept of individual and total, in Ananda Anugat it thins out, and in Asmita Anugat, if one gets established, it gets wiped out. So vitarka vichara ananda asmita rupanugamat samprajnatah. This sutra gives the journey of entering within. This itself is then elaborated further, but it gives us the map of going within. So the first level is focusing our attention on the gross objects. Then from the gross you come at the subtler level. From the subtler you come at still subtler. Subtler means the cause of that. So cause of Mahabhut is Tanmatra. Cause of this even the what you call tan and same what you call mana indriya mana and all these indriyas are also at the same level of tanmatra. Cause of all of them is ahankar. Cause of this ahankar is this mahat tattva or the chitta. So as we go from the effect to the cause and it will reach the subtlest level of that chitta, then only one vritti is there of asmi. Asmi vritti is there. And when we reach that level, then what happens? That when our whole attention is focused on asmi vritti, now this is very important, huh? When our whole attention is focused on asmi vritti, there is only asmi vritti is there. This asmi vritti is made up of the purusha and the chitta. There are two things in it. Whether you call it the reflection of purusha in chitta or whatever. So the purusha is there as the substratum and that chitta is there. And when one focuses our attention on this asmi, means only asmi vritti is there on chitta, and one reaches that state of complete absorption, total ekagrata in this only, that's called sampradnya samadhi, then what happens? A strange thing happens. What? One understands, there is understanding happens of the difference between purusha and the chitta. One understands that this is there. Here also there are two things. So that this is called vivek happens of purusha and chitta, or the reflection of purusha and chitta. This vivek is called vivek khyati. One comes to understand that I, the real nature of I, the drashta himself understands the real nature of me is that purusha, and all this is prakriti or the effect of prakriti. This vivek happens at that level of asmitanugat sampradnya samadhi. What we had seen before as param vairagya, that param vairagya, which happens because of viveka, happens at this level. So this is it's also called the vivek khyati. So when this vivek khyati happens, param vairagya happens, then one drops this asmita vritti also as a vritti. The drashta becomes detached from this asmita vritti also and considers everything as vrittis, as gunas. This understanding doesn't happen as in the form of thoughts or it's a subtler level of understanding. So that word understanding we use, but the term used later on is prajna, ritambara prajna. So that ritambara prajna takes place and the param vairagya happens, and this vritti is also dropped. This is the single vritti which finally is there of asmita, that also gets dropped, and one reaches the state of asampradnya samadhi. And this dropping of this vritti was mentioned in the second sutra, yogas chitta vritti nirodha. This chitta vritti is also dropped. This is also asmita is also chitta vritti. The last. That when it gets dropped, then one reaches what we call asampradnya samadhi. So this sampradnya samadhi is a very subtle sadhana. So vitarka, vichara, and as I said, it is on concentration, dharana. And dharana is mentioned as yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahar. Dharana is the sixth one. Dharana, dhyan, samadhi. So those who have done this five, for them this dharana, dhyan, samadhi is mentioned here. But if this becomes difficult, then we go back to this five. Start with yama, niyama, asana, which is mentioned in sadhana path, the second chapter. But here, those who have reached this stage, those who can do dharana, concentration, then from here the concentration begins. Vitarkanugat, Vicharanugat, Anandanugat, and Asmitanugat. So, this is the Sampradnya Samadhi, which culminates in Vivek Khyati, which culminates in Param Vairagya, or which culminates in Ritambara Pratnya. These are same thing, different terms. So Ritambara Pratnya is also the Vivek Khyati or Param Vairagya. When this happens, the attachment to this Asmita Vritti also gets dropped. And when there is no attachment to Asmita Vritti, which is the final Vritti, there is no attachment to any Vritti, all Vrittis come to an end. Vritti Nirodh happens. And when that Vritti Nirodh happens, the Drashta abides in his own Swarup. But before abiding in his own Swarup, that stage also, he remains in that Asampradnya Samadhi. And that Asampradnya Samadhi also remains in that for some long time, then that Kaivalya Avastha takes place. So what is that Asampradnyat Samadhi? That is now said in the next sutra. Virama Pratyaya Abhyasapurvah Samskara Sheshonyah Virama Pratyaya Abhyasapurvah Samskara Sheshonyah Virama Pratyaya Abhyasapurvah Samskara Sheshah Anya means the other samadhi. Previously was mentioned Sampradnyat. So this Anya is Asampradnyat. In this Asampradnyat Samadhi, it is not the final stage of Kaivalya Avastha. In this also some samskar remains. Therefore it is called Samskara Sheshah. The samskar of this Vivek Khyati, of this Param Vairagya, some samskar of that also remains. So it is not the ultimate state of Kaivalya Avastha, but it is almost there. So samskara sheshaha. Because when one reaches that sampradnya samadhi, and when one practices param vairagya towards that asmitanugat vritti also, asmita vritti also, then this practice of param vairagya helps one to drop that vritti. But this practice of param vairagya also leaves some samskar. So that samskar remains in asampradnyat samadhi, which is not like a big obstacle or something, but it is there. So here it is said abhyasa purvaha. It is attained, this asampradnyat samadhi attains after abhyas of what? Virama pratyaya. This virama pratyaya is that param vairagya only. Virama means where all the thoughts have stopped. Pratyaya here means the cause of stopping all the vrittis, and that cause of stopping all the vrittis is Param Vairagya. So, by the practice of Param Vairagya, Abhyasa, by the practice of Param Vairagya, when all the thoughts get dropped, then one reaches that state of asampradnyat samadhi. But this practice of Param Vairagya leaves its samskar. So that samskar is there in asampradnyat samadhi. Vrittis are not. That is, samskar are at different level altogether. So that stage where only the samskar is there is called the asampradnyat samadhi. And when one remains in this asampradnyat samadhi for some time, then that samskar also gets dropped, and the drashta abides in his own swarup. Then the yatra is complete. So this asampradnyat is just in between stage before one attains that kaivalya avastha. So virama pratyaya abhyasa purvah samskara sheshah anyah. So virama pratyaya is that vivek, what you call paravairagya. Abhyasa purva. So that abhyas of this means what is paravairagya? Wherein one comes to understand that the purusha is different and this chitta is different. When this difference is understood to the drashta, and when that at a subtler level that vairagya comes towards all these gunas, guna vaitrushnyam. So that practice, here one uses the word practice, this, that and all, but all this have different connotation at that level. So when that last samskar also get dropped, last vritti also get dropped, then one automatically glides into a sampradnyat samadhi, wherein till the impressions of this param vairagya remains, one remains in that sampradnyat samadhi, and that also automatically gets wiped out, and one attains the state of kaivalya. So virama pratyaya abhyasa purvah samskara shesho anyah. So these are the two, sampradnyat and asampradnyat samadhi, which is the main practice, and it is achieved through abhyas. So abhyas, when we do abhyas of vitarkanugat, abhyas means continuous practice of keeping that vritti in our chitta, one vritti only in our chitta. So then we go to the second stage of vicharanugat. To go from the grosser state to the subtler state, we require vairagya and also abhyas, but vairagya helps us to drop that state and go to the subtler level. That also is dropped and go to the subtler level, again vairagya, till one reaches that asmitanugat. There we require param vairagya to go into that asampradnyat samadhi avastha. So through abhyas and vairagya, one attains that state of chitta vritti nirodha. So as it was said, abhyasa vairagya abhyam tan nirodha. How? Through this through this vitarka, vichara, ananda asmitanugamat, sampradnyatah, and then reaching the state of asampradnyatah. So thus, a very beautiful thing he said. Now the question also is there that or finer details are given in the further sutras. They are also very important. We will see in our class in the evening. ॐ पूर्णमद पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ओम्।